Friday, March 20th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about two old PC games that are super awesome. XCOM UFO Defense and Star Control 2. Let's do this.
So despite the fact that we own all of these games multiple times over, never mind the fact that we have emulators, we keep buying virtual console games.
We haven't bought a virtual console game in a while.
Yeah,
What are you talking
however,
about?
we've been playing Super Mario World, and I'm happy that I remember as a kid, there was that Star World that was crazy hard, and you know when you got to the end of it, it totally changed the game and changed all the graphics, and all the turtles started wearing Mario heads, and it was kind of weird. And I remember as a kid it being this impossible dream to defeat that. It took me days and days and days.
Well, at least you could save, so it wasn't an impossible dream. It was just pretty hard, especially for a kid without any help.
Well, I remember as a kid, especially Funky at the end, just banging my head against that level over and over and over again, unable to beat it.
Well,
And
see, I like that because Mario games too often, while it might be a little tricky to figure out where the secrets are or where the alternate exit is, it's never really hard to beat a Mario level without dying.
not since Mario 3.
Yeah, pretty much.
And parts of Mario World.
Yep, so when there's Mario levels in a 2D Mario side-scroller that just can't be beaten, that's pretty awesome. Because, New Mario Brothers didn't have much of that.
God,
at
I
all.
beat New Mario Brothers in like 2 days.
I beat it so fast. I think one of these days I'll go back and finish getting all the coins. I mean the big coins. Because I think I got all the big coins in like the first 3 or 4 worlds.
Yeah, I got most of them, and then I just stopped caring.
Yeah, I also stopped caring.
Especially, like, I stopped caring in the Mario 2 one, where you can get the Yoshi eggs.
Oh, yeah.
I was going after those for like a week, and then one day I realized that, I wonder what I get for this. So I looked online, and apparently,
Nothing.
I think they changed one graphic on the start screen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really have to make some, if they should make another new Mario Brothers, but they should make it actually get hard instead of just get interesting.
Well, my point here, the thing that I found really interesting was that now, as an adult, I played those worlds again, and it wasn't trivial to beat them, but I beat them in fairly short order without much difficulty.
Yeah, I also didn't have much problem. The only reason I haven't gotten as far as Rim, because he's going to be all like, you suck, is because I really haven't played it.
Yeah, we'll
For
see.
like a week or two.
We'll see. You didn't know where some of the secrets were.
That's because I never owned the game. I only remember where the first
That's no excuse.
75% of the secrets are.
I didn't own the game.
Oh, I should know all the secrets in a game I never owned and
Yes.
didn't read a fact for.
Yes, I mean, if you don't know where Kuribo's shoe is, even if you've never heard of Mario 3, that's not cool. But I've realized, I was thinking back after this when I beat this pretty handily, that a lot of these games that as a kid, I guess I wasn't good at video games when I was a kid. Maybe I'm just a better gamer now, but when I play Bionic Commando, I'm a god at that game compared to what I was as a kid. I remember it was so hard to get even to the second half of that game, and I always died, and I continued all the time, and now I can just beat Bionic Commando without blinking.
Yet we still can't get anywhere in Silver Surfer.
I haven't tried.
I tried. You can't get anywhere.
Maybe we should get some emulation going on that Mac and try.
It's all you.
First one of us, we should have a bet. First one of us to get to the third stage.
There isn't really a
No, I
third
mean
stage.
to beat 2 stages.
Okay, to beat 2 stages?
Let's put like $500 on the line.
No, it's all right. I don't have $500 right now.
Nah.
And have money troubles.
But yeah, I've realized that I really like Mario World, and it's probably my second favorite Mario, but I'm also remembering that I think I like Mario 3 a little bit more just because Mario 3 is still harder than I can deal with easily.
Also, I'm not sure if Mario 3 actually has more levels. It feels like it has more levels.
The levels are a lot shorter, though.
They are, but they're also sort of more interesting, and because you can't go back to them, I've played a lot of them a lot less. So they're more fun to play levels I've barely played, especially Kuribo Shoe type levels.
Well, there's just more kinds of things and more kinds of levels, and Mario World, the worlds aren't that different. I mean, the Mystic Forest is a lot different from everything else, but other than that, there's not any real sense of wonder. Nothing really changes between the worlds other than that it gets harder.
You know what I just realized? It feels like in Mario World, a lot of levels you can burn through. You're just going right.
Oh, if you got a cape
Mario,
and a blue Yoshi, just fly over the top.
In Mario 3, while you can fly over, a lot of the levels actually force you to progress through each and every part, all slowly and carefully like.
Yep, plus even if you want to fly over it without a P-Wing, you can't fly forever.
Yup. Oh, that's right. Mario World, you can fly forever without a P-Wing.
Yeah, as long as you've got, I don't know, some level of motor control.
Well, there's the level early on in the game where you can just practice to your heart's content. So.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember spending a lot of time
This is turning
there.
into like the episode from a couple weeks ago.
All right, this isn't really news. I'm sure everyone's aware, but I just have to mention the fact that Splatterhouse has been released on the Virtual Console for the Wii.
Woot.
The game's not that good. I wouldn't recommend anyone actually buy it.
Well, it depends how much it is. I would pay $3 for Splatterhouse. I'm pretty sure it's not $3.
I'm pretty sure it's 800. That seems to be the going
$8,
trend.
yeah.
800 points.
$8.
You mean 800 points?
No, I mean $8.
There are no dollars in Wii Land. There's points.
Yeah. You keep telling yourself that.
Splatterhouse really, it's more a nostalgia thing than anything. And I never even really played the game. I just knew about it. Every kid knew about it because in every gaming magazine, there were these horribly violent advertisements for this horribly violent game. And the game was marketed on the sole premise that it's horribly violent.
Yeah, Splatterhouse is sort of the overfiend of video games. You know, it was... You were a guy who was basically Jason. You had a hockey mask that possessed you with evil and gave you powers, and a chainsaw, or whatever, a baseball bat,
or a 2x4 usually,
or what other sort of weapon, maybe your fist if you sucked. And you walked around a house full of nasty monsters, and when you hit them, they went splat, and they made a big gooey mess everywhere. Usually that was all gory and nasty, and you were just trying to save your girlfriend from this haunted house. And then all the bosses were crazy-ass brain things or whatever, and it was just a big mess of gore.
I don't remember if it was Splatterhouse 2 or 1 or which one it was, but one of the bosses in one of them, I remember, was a bunch of bloody fetuses that would just kind of dangle from the ceiling.
Yeah, not so good. Not so good. But yeah, if you like just walking around, hitting things, and watching them go splat, this is the game for you.
However, you should at least be aware that this game existed, because we have a lot of problems now with people blaming video games for violence or whatever. And I think a lot of this at least has its earliest, basest origins in the fact that there was an era where a lot of video games were marketed solely on the level of violence in them. And this isn't a new debate. It's just been intensified.
Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2.
Mortal Kombat.
All right.
That was the one moment in my entire life where, as a kid, there were people who had a Sega system who had a one-up on me. Because my version of Mortal Kombat didn't have blood.
It was actually a better version, though.
It was. But it didn't have blood. And unlike the Sega kids, there was no blood code.
Yep.
Not that Mortal Kombat was a good game by any stretch.
Mortal Kombat 1...
Mortal Kombat 1 was a mediocre fighter.
It was an okay game.
Mortal Kombat
2 was actually a good fighting game.
It was average.
Mortal Kombat 3 is just bad, and any Mortal Kombat greater than 2 is pretty much just bad.
See, by the time we had Mortal Kombat 2, which was an okay fighting game, we could just play Street Fighter 2. So I bothered with Mortal Kombat.
We had Street Fighter 2 and we had Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah. So Street Fighter 2 was better than Mortal Kombat 2.
Not really.
I think so.
Super Street Fighter 2 was better than Mortal Kombat 2.
Mortal Kombat 2 wasn't that great.
Mortal Kombat 2 was all right. Anyway, so there's a guy out there named Eli Tomlinson, and he's done something that a lot of people have had the idea to do for a long time. He took some Linux and put it on a CD, and he put a game on the CD. And you put the CD in your computer, and you boot your computer, and the game just plays, as if your computer was a console.
Now, many of you might be too young to remember this, but there was a time, a long time ago, where you would buy computer games, and your computer probably was not able to run Windows or your mouse driver and still play the game. It just wasn't
if you
fast
only
enough.
had, say, 8 megabytes of RAM, and the game required 6 megabytes of RAM, and all your drivers for your hardware required 1.5 megabytes of RAM, you're running out of RAM pretty quickly there. So what you've got to do, you had to in those days, was boot your computer with a boot disk that wouldn't load all the things that are normally loaded, like your operating, you would load less of your operating system.
Well, what actually happened was a lot of games came with a boot disk. So
Yep.
they come with the install disks and the boot disk. And they just assumed that your computer was too slow. So whenever you wanted to play the game, you put the boot disk in, you reboot it. Or if you were uber elite and you knew about DOS, you held F5 when it booted, and then you manually loaded your mouse drivers and your high mem stuff, and you shuffled your RAM around, and then you started the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you really think about it, your computer, I assume, is pretty damn powerful. And you look at the system specifications of something like the Xbox 360, and then you look at the specifications of your computer, and you say, wait My computer's way better than the 360. Why do the 360 games look better than the ones on my computer?
Because the 360 isn't running Linux or Windows and IM and ICQ and Firefox and Photoshop.
It's just, if you get your computer to run the game and nothing else, it'll be pretty damn awesome. Now, this guy isn't actually doing that. He's not putting out awesome games that are using your computer to its fullest potential and getting those extra 30 FPS that are being eaten up by CPU time on other programs. He's just taking open source games, putting them on discs, and selling them for $20.
Huh.
Which is perfectly legal. You're
Yeah.
allowed to do that. If you take the GIMP, you can put the GIMP on a CD and sell that CD. That's okay. Thumbs up. Open source people have no problem with that.
Well, most open source people.
If they do, they're crazy because the GPL lets you do that very specifically.
But what if there's all those nut jobs who use things other than the GPL, like the AFPL and...
It's like that time that someone in Britain was selling copies of Firefox rebranded.
I remember that.
And they called up the Firefox guys, the Britain piracy people called up Firefox, and they were like, people are doing this. And they're like, yeah, so they can do that. But we can't. That messes up our whole system here of catching pirates. We can't. What?
Man, I remember just one of the greatest days in my life was when I bought 4 megabytes of RAM to bring my 486 up from 4 megabytes to 8 megabytes. And then I could play Doom without having to boot F5.
Yep. The interesting thing about what this guy is doing is that he's not selling it as like, hey, here's a Linux game that's a boot CD. He's saying, this is a game for the GameX console, GAMIX, and he's distributing them in blue cases as if they were for a console. And he says, if your computer meets these specifications, then it is a GameX console, and it can play these games.
I see the primary market for this sort of thing, especially with simple games or open source games or whatever, being parents who don't know about computers, who have younger kids and want to get games for the younger kids, but don't understand any of this business, don't want to install software, don't want to deal with that. Buy a CD, boot it, kid plays, take the CD out, now you're back to doing your businessman things.
Yep. I could actually almost see, like, actual PC games going to be a sort of GameX type format. Why can't the next big FPS be a GameX game? Well, the only reason that I can see it won't be is because people need to keep their IMs open.
That's what I was about to say.
They need to keep their TeamSpeaks open.
Rebooting computers is a gigantic pain in the ass.
It is indeed.
I mean, the Mac downstairs, we reboot it pretty much never. So when I have to reboot it, it's this huge annoyance. And the only reason I avoid booting the primary computer I use, the Geeknights computer, because every time I boot it, there's a chance it won't come back up. It has some trouble recently, so lately I'm just leaving it on.
Are you gonna buy a new? How soon are you gonna buy a new one? If you change your plans?
April 22nd. I'm holding out for that possibility that the memo leaked from Intel was true, and that in April they're gonna announce all the new chips and the price cuts. And if that happens, I'm gonna buy a new computer pretty much that day.
You're changing all your plans, I see.
Actually, this has been my plan for like 2.5, 3 weeks.
Your plan was like summer. You were going to buy
it. No, my original plan was the week before Team Fortress 2 came out.
See, you're changing the plan.
I changed the plan months and months and months ago when I found out they were going to delay Team Fortress 2 way beyond what I was willing to wait.
All right, whatever.
Yeah. I've talked about this on the show a couple times and in the forums. It's not new news. I changed my plans a long time ago.
You big flip-flopper.
Well, originally, they said that Team Fortress 2 was going to come out in spring of this year, and that ain't happening.
So you're saying it's not okay for them to change their plans, so it's not okay for you to change your plans.
No, I'm saying because they changed their plan, I changed my plan. And that was a while ago, and you knew about this, and now you're acting like you didn't know, so you can make a deal about it on the show.
When they announced that they were changing those dates, you didn't change your plan to buy a computer in April. You changed your plan to buy a computer earlier.
Well, no, I said, shits. What am I going to do now? I don't have to buy it as soon as I thought. How long can I hold out? And the answer is not as long as I hoped.
Nope. See? Whatever.
And that was a couple weeks ago when I saw that was the date, supposedly, that Intel's going to release the new chips.
All right. Big plan changer. So what's you got any news over there?
Yeah, I got some news, and this is kind of interesting. It looks like...
News that Rim...
But yeah, since that virtual console thing isn't news, I'm not going to make my news every week be whatever the Wii has on the virtual console. But in actual news, the PS3 lost another exclusive. It looks like Devil May Cry 4, which I care so little about.
I care about it less than pretty much almost everything.
Here's my experience with the Devil May Cry franchise. Because we didn't have a PS2, but our friend Luke did. So we went over to his house and he said, check out this game,
This
Devil
was
May
when
Cry.
Devil May Cry was brand new, like the new hotness.
Yeah, like 2 days after it came out. We're sitting in his apartment.
Yep.
And he's playing and he's having a great time and the graphics look great. So he hands me the controller. And for like a half hour, I'd hit a thing with a sword. And then I'd jump and shoot while I fell through the air in slow motion. And I just did that over and over again because it was so awesome to jump in the air and shoot in slow motion. And another hour went by and we all took turns shooting things in slow motion in the air. And then eventually, the next day, we realized that there really wasn't anything else to that game and we stopped playing.
No, all we did was walk around this castle, and whenever there was a monster, you would kill it in some way that looked really cool, but was the same thing every time. And then eventually the game was over.
Yeah, and then we read on the internet about all the people talking about the various difficulties or annoying things later in this game, and then I stopped caring about Devil May Cry, and I didn't even know that there was a 3, so the fact that there's a 4 here means I'm kind of out of the loop. But anyway, it's not a PS3 exclusive anymore, and there's rumors going around that Metal Gear might be going the same route.
Well, I mean, if you're a game developer, if you're going to really decide to make your game PS3 exclusive, you're pretty much asking to lose money. I mean, you can't do it business-wise. You're paying how much money to develop Metal Gear Solid 4? Millions of dollars. If you choose to sell it on only the PS3, pretty much almost nobody is going to buy it. I mean, sure, some people will buy PS3s just to get your game because your game is that good or that popular or it's such a big franchise. And people with PS3s will almost all definitely buy the game. Sort of like everyone with a GameCube will buy a Wind Waker, and everyone with a Wii will buy a Twilight Princess, right? But it's still not enough to make back the millions you spent to buy make Metal Gear Solid 4.
Well, the thing is, I can only see 2 situations where a game developer would ever make a game exclusive. Number 1 is if whatever you're doing with your game requires something that is only on a particular console. If you want Xbox Live, you gotta be on the Xbox.
Yeah, so
if you want the Wiimote, you gotta be on the Wii. If you don't want to sell your game, you gotta be on the PS3. Well, the thing is, the PS3 doesn't have a lot to offer so far. I mean, even it's supposed to be so much more powerful, yet a lot of games are having some trouble capitalizing on that power, and I haven't really seen any games that look like they really push the PS3 to its limit.
Even if they do push the PS3 to the limit, they gotta be good games.
Hell,
I mean, I could go and make a game that pushes the graphics of the PS3 to the limit.
Oh, It'll called
just be
Double Dodecahedron Ray Tracer.
That's what it is called. It draws a really cool double dodecahedron, and you can look at it from different angles by controlling it with your 6-axis.
And then it draws 1,000 of them, and they bounce against each other in a real-time physics engine.
And then it fills the thing with water, and you can see the fishes go, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah, but the only other reason would be if the people who control a console decided to pay a developer X amount of money to make their game exclusive. Now, I don't think that Sony has enough money to pay the people who make these games to release their games only on the PS3, at least now when there aren't so many PS3s in the world in people's hands.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got to assume, all right, what if they made Metal Gear Solid 4 for the Xbox 360, right? And it would cost them X much to make the game, and then in the end, they would make X profit. If they sell it on the PS3, they would only get X dollars. They might not even profit. So they would basically, Sony would have to pay them the difference for it to be worth it for them to make it a Sony exclusive.
Yep, and game developers, it's not like they have loyalty to a console for any reason other than money. I mean, Square, they used to be buddy-buddy with Nintendo. Everyone always forgets that Final Fantasy started in Nintendo and stayed on Nintendo for a long time. A lot of people would say through the best of Final Fantasy, but I'm not going to get into that argument.
In fact, if Nintendo didn't, have troubles with Squaresoft, the PlayStation never would have been anything.
Yeah, Square had an actual not personal falling out with Nintendo.
Yep.
In addition to the non-personal issues.
And whether you realize it or not, if that falling out did not occur, then Final Fantasy VII would have not come out for the PlayStation. It would have coming out for the N64 or something else, and then no one would have bought a PlayStation.
Or at least the
and
PlayStation...
Sony would be nothing right now.
You know what? There's a chance that if that had happened, the Dreamcast might have done better.
That is true.
And that would have been a great... God, we got to go back in time and kill whoever's
responsible. Also,
responsible.
the Saturn would have done better.
We got to go back in time and fix this.
Yeah, okay.
there's a disturbance. If we correct this, then the Saturn becomes a viable console.
No,
and
the real solution is to make sure Myst is never released.
Man,
Or released many years later.
we got to do a show on Myst just so I can complain about it.
Okay.
And Riven and all that.
I never played the other ones.
Me either, but I know about them because I knew people who played them.
All right.
But yeah, this isn't big news in and of itself, but if Metal Gear and other franchises start dropping from the PS3 exclusivity, yeah, then that's not really a good thing for Sony, because pretty much the only reason to buy one console over the other, if you ignore things like how much they cost, is the game library on it. And if a game is released equivalently on all three consoles or on two different consoles, you don't need both consoles if you like that game. You only need a console if you want a game that's only going to be on that console.
Yeah, I mean, no one goes out and buys an Xbox 360 for Madden or something like that, because Madden's on every console. So as long as you got one, you don't need, it doesn't matter which one you've got Madden. It's there. It's going to be there.
Yep.
But you buy a Wii to get Twilight Princess because you can't get it anywhere else.
But if you have a Wii and Madden comes out on the Wii, and say an identical Madden came out on the Xbox, there's no reason to buy an Xbox to get that Madden.
Well, the only reason is sometimes people
I said identical. If it's not identical, then...
Yeah, even if it is identical, sometimes people are super fans and they'll want to get, the games for different consoles. Also,
but if they're identical...
Well, also sometimes, let's say you have a Wii, a PS3, and a 360, and a game comes out for all three and it's the same game on all systems, you still might, even if you only buy one, you might choose to get, say, the PS3 one because you like that controller, or you might choose to get the Xbox one because you use your Xbox more than you use your other consoles, so it's easier for you.
Well, like the case of Soul Calibur 2. If you had a GameCube, you were pretty much an idiot if you bought that game for something other than the GameCube, because it was really its best on the GameCube.
Well, you might have been a fan of those other characters.
Oh yeah, you might have been a fan of the characters, but in terms of the game itself, it was better on the GameCube.
Yeah.
At least it was better on the GameCube and the Xbox than it was on the PlayStation.
No, the PlayStation 2 one was actually the second best Soul Calibur 2. I don't know anyone who bought the Xbox One Soul Calibur 2. Who bought that?
I've read forums where people were talking about...
Was that the one with Spawn?
I don't remember. I think it was
remember.
Spawn. They preferred the Xbox one. They complained that the PS2 one was slow, or not really slow, but that didn't look good.
And who cares what it looks like? It's a fighting game. You fight.
Nah, I care a little bit about prettiness in a fighting game, because otherwise, why not just have stick figures?
Why not just have stick figures? You can make a badass stick figure fighting game if you had really good stick figures.
Things of the day. So, Doom 2 is probably one of my favorite FPSs ever. In terms of single player, I really, really like it. That and Half-Life 1 are together just the best games.
Oh, it's not the best FPS ever now, considering we have Half-Life 1 and 2 and System Shock 2, which I still haven't played, and some others. But it's a classic, and it's still awesome. And
I think it holds its own even today. I mean, Serious Sam is the only game that's even tried to have the same kind of style.
Problem is it's a different style than the FPSs of today, and I like that style less than I like these, current Half-Life style of single-player FPS, but in its style, it might be the best one.
Well, the thing is, you call it the current style. Not many FPSs really pull that off well at all.
I know, that's the thing, is that when it's pulled off, it's the best, but it's only pulled off, maybe 5 or 6 times in history.
Well, anyway, I used to make a lot of Doom 2 mods when I was a kid, and I made some fun ones and some clever ones and some stupid ones, but this one here is probably the most hilarious one I've ever seen. And no, I didn't make it. According to YouTube, it was made in Peru. It is Super Mario Doom Brothers. You might think this is going to be stupid. I'd recommend you watch it. It's actually pretty hilarious.
I remember back in the day, the first Doom mod ever was Barney Doom, because in those times, Barney, the big purple dinosaur, everyone loved to make fun of it and say how stupid it was. And everyone hated it and the stupid songs that it sang and the whole thing. So they made Barney Doom, where you could kill Barney with the Doom weapons, and there would be Barney bad guys, and you would kill them while it sang its terrible song. And it was great.
We had a project in middle school where there was like this cross-curriculum BS where we had to get into teams and do all these parts of a project. It involved designing a candy factory. You might wonder why this is relevant. Me being all clever decided that what I would do for part of this was make a virtual reality mock-up of our factory. And all I did was open up Wadded and Windy and all those things, make a little semi-crappy Doom level with the right textures to look vaguely like a Candy Factory. It was basically just a Doom level without any monsters in it. I got rid of the gun and replaced it with like a spatula. I put a chef hat on the Doom guy, and I got an A because that was the most amazing thing. My teachers couldn't believe that I made this virtual reality world for a project in school. I even left some of the monsters in one of the rooms like workers. I just took away their shoot animation, so all they did was wander around and stare at you. And they were still zombies. I wasn't an artist.
Yeah. So here's another video from Doom 2. And it's this punk kid. Definitely a punk kid. There's no doubt. And he's like, hey, everyone, check this out. This is a secret level in Doom 2. The secret level that is straight out of Wolfenstein 3D. The secret level that anyone who's ever played Doom 2 knows about.
Well, kid, I got this to say to you, and that is, welcome to the internet.
I mean, this video the only equivalence that I can think of would be if someone like made a video and said, hey, here's how you get the whistle in Mario 3. Hey, here's how you do the Konami code. Do you know that it works in Contra and Gradius?
No,
holy shit.
I think it's even a step beyond that, because this kid, I don't know where to begin. First off, before we even go any further.
Hey, guys, I found this great movie, Star Wars. Have you ever seen it? It's pretty cool.
Well, one, the kid has to cheat to beat the cyber demon.
Okay, yeah, he says when he opens the door and the cyber demon comes out, he says in the video, luckily, I got some cheats. I can beat the cyber demon with the pistol. Anyone with any amount of skill can beat the cyber demon with the pistol without getting hit.
I punched a cyber demon to death just to see if I could.
As long as there's only one cyber demon. If there's two at the same time and you can't get them to kill each other, then it could be a little tough.
Actually, a map that I always had a lot of fun on, it was a custom one. I don't know who made it, but I had it. It was basically this arena, like a gladiatorial arena. It was you and 3 cyber demons, and that's it.
The trick is to get them to kill each other until there's just one left.
They won't. I fought them all.
That sucks. As long as you do it one at a time?
Not really. Hey, that's how I trained.
Yeah. I could do that, but I couldn't do it with the pistol.
I defy anyone who has ever listened to Geeknights to beat me in a Doom 2 deathmatch.
Anyway, it gets even worse. Because after he beats the cyber demon with his cheats, he goes into the next room. If you play Doom 2, you know what's in the next room of the secret level.
Yeah, it's Commander Keen.
There's 4 Commander Keens hanging there, and you shoot them, and then you flick the switch, and the game's over. He says, all right, can someone please tell me why? This is the kid. The kid says in the video, can someone tell me why there's a football player dead hanging on ropes at the end of Doom 2? It's Commander Keen! What the... Can someone tell me why there's a plumber going down pipes in Mario 1? I don't know. Commander Keen!
To his credit, he was probably not born when Commander Keen was popular. I'll bet half of our listeners have never played a Commander Keen game.
And they're just as bad as this kid for not knowing. Just as bad.
Scott, Commander Keen was old hat when we were in middle school.
That's the point. But I know about it. It's like, oh, gee, what's this game? It's Dig Dug. You gotta know.
Commander Keen, I don't think the vast majority of people in the world today have any idea who Commander Keen is.
Ready? Okay.
These are the same people who don't realize that Duke Nukem was a fun 2D platformer long before it was an FPS.
id Software, the people who made Doom and Wolfenstein and everything, and Quake. Before they made those games, they made a game called Commander Keen, and there were actually quite a few Commander Keen games. It was a platform game, kind of like Mario. You jump around and, you do stuff. You pick up items. You would kill bad guys with this laser gun. Basically, you're on an alien world. You collected treasures. You found secret exits. But it wasn't platform like Mario, get to the end of the level, even though there was some of that. It was sort of platform, figure out your way around the level. It's kind of a little bit of a maze, a little bit exploring, a little bit, do you want to take the risk and go for that extra goodie if you want to miss the spikes, that sort of thing.
Kinds of games that aren't around so much anymore.
Yeah, and the thing about Commander Keen that was awesome was that you had this pogo stick, and it was all about the pogo stick. And the plot was you were a kid, and you were like in your bedroom, and then suddenly you were needed on a planet far away to save like the universe from aliens or something. And you would get in your little UFO with your football helmet and your ray gun and your pogo stick, and you go to another planet and save the day.
Now, the best part about this kid's little internet video where he shows us his voice. This kid has such the nerdly punk kid voice that it was almost painful to hear it.
And he doesn't know crap about video games.
I do, however, salute this kid because he has shown me that no matter how connected the world is, there are always going to be nubs. And the nubs don't know that they're nubs.
You know, there was a baby born just now, and it doesn't know anything. It doesn't even know who Mickey Mouse is, who Mario is. It doesn't know nothing.
Scott, there are probably a lot of kids who are going to play Twilight Princess, and they don't even know that there was this other Zelda game for this archaic gray box that came out when their parents were younger.
Yeah, they will, because the virtual console will show them the way.
No, maybe. Their parents aren't going to give them the credit card, let them buy games up there.
No, but they'll see in there, in the virtual console, they'll see these games, that they're still there.
Maybe that's the true power of the virtual console, that it'll force kids to at least know that there used to be something else.
I think eventually one day, you know how we sort of have classic books, you know, and they're like, there's a special section in the bookstore for the classics, you know, like Moby Dick and Shakespeare and all those, the classics. And there's movies that are the classics. It's a whole TV channel that just shows them all day long. We're going to have the all-time classics of video games one day. And they'll be in every store, you know, on that special section, the classics.
Interestingly, to me, and not to belie any sort of fanboyishness or anything, but if I think about games that I would consider classic, the vast majority of them are Nintendo games.
Pretty much, yeah.
But that might just be due to the fact that Nintendo had a virtual monopoly on the gaming market for a long time.
Longer than anyone else, and possibly at the present time.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think Nintendo would come back so strong until the Wii came out and did gangbusters.
And not the DS still is better. All right. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I really wanted to do a show on XCOM Mission UFO, also known as XCOM Enemy Unknown or XCOM UFO Defense. But Scott sucked at the game and never played it.
I barely played this game. I never had it. I barely even knew much about XCOM until way later. And, you know, while I recognize that it is a great, classic, awesome game, and I know about it, I didn't play it enough to really do a whole episode.
But at the same time, Scott had a game that he wanted to talk about.
Yes, perhaps one of the best games ever, if not the best game ever, maybe the best PC game ever. You couldn't argue it is no worse than the second greatest PC game ever, Star Control 2, which Rim has never played, and I think a lot of people...
I've turned it on and poked at it, I've just never played it for more than a trivial amount.
And a lot of people who didn't have, you know, DOS computers don't even know about this game, never played it yet. It is no worse than the second best PC game ever.
See, now I would say the exact same thing about XCOM Mission UFO. I consider it to be one of the greatest, bar none, PC games ever made.
Yeah, it's like them and TIE Fighter.
Well, TIE Fighter's the number one.
And Civ 2.
There's no question. TIE Fighter got
and
the
SimCity 2000.
I remember back in the day when TIE Fighter got the highest score PC Gamer, which used to be a fairly legitimate reviewer of games, had ever given, a 97%. And then, years later, a game beat TIE Fighter with 98%. And the only game that was ever good enough to beat TIE Fighter was TIE Fighter re-released on CD.
So, yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good... I think we'll do well combining these two games into one show where we sort of have a similar experience with each. Great old PC games for DOS that you played one and I played one. And no one seems to know about them anymore or care.
Now, there's also a lot of things that you should take away from this episode. One that I think is interesting is that both of these are kinds of games that not only aren't made anymore, but have almost never been made. There are so few games that are like this.
Yeah, there's not many games like Star Control except Star Control.
And XCOM, there were sequels that were ass, and there have been a lot of people... XCOM was so good back in the day that even to this day, there are a lot of people trying to make XCOM clones or trying to recreate XCOM.
And they all suck.
Yes. Good God.
I mean, it would be trivial. Like, I could imagine easily a game in the same genre as XCOM that had a better interface than XCOM and was a better game than XCOM. UFO Defense, not any of the other XCOMs. Yet, no one has made them despite trying. Even though it's just, I can think of it right now. It's in my brain. There it is. It's definitely feasible.
Yeah. But it ends up being, these are both fairly unique games. And what I really want you to come out of this is that you can get a hold of these games. They're not lost to the
Star
ages.
Control is much easier to get a hold of than XCOM, but XCOM is not impossible.
Is trivial to get a hold of. I'm going to link to the Underdog's download of XCOM.
Oh, snaps.
You can just play it.
Oh, shits.
I own 2 legitimate copies of XCOM. I also have a third. XCOM is the first game I ever got that wasn't just a shareware game or some sort of crap puzzle game for a computer. Also, I pirated it because I didn't know that there was such a thing as software you could buy.
Haha.
But anyway, you can get these games, and I cannot recommend enough that you play both of these games. If you consider yourself a gamer by any stretch, at least try to play these games and look at them and examine them. And I guarantee that you will like at least one of them a lot.
It's pretty much impossible. It's like, if you're a movie person, you can't just, like, not watch
Citizen Kane, Casablanca.
Yeah, you have to watch them.
Biodome.
So if you have to watch those, then you gotta play these.
So in 1993, Microprose released this game called UFO, Enemy Unknown in Europe. And it was then released in America titled XCOM UFO Defense. There was also XCOM Mission UFO, which was the same game. I don't know why, but I saw boxes of it that said XCOM Mission UFO, but it was the exact same game.
It's sort of like when they put out a comic book with 2 covers and then you buy both. They're trying to scam you into buying the same game twice.
I don't know. I think there might have been issues with it being released in different places and things getting knocked around. It doesn't really matter because the game is XCOM. People call it by all these names, but XCOM is basically the name.
Yeah, there are other XCOM games that came later, like
A lot of them.
XCOM Apocalypse,
XCOM Terror from the Deep. They're all garbage.
Yeah, the only one you care about is the original XCOM UFO something something.
Yeah, UFO Defense. We'll go with that. That's the easiest way to nominate.
Hereby known as XCOM.
Yes. Now, this game, for the PC, ran on a 486. It was fairly high for the time. My computer had to be booted specially to run it because my computer was really slow. It barely met the requirements. And to say what genre the game is in would be very difficult to do because it's kind of, remember how ActRaiser for the SNES had basically 2 entirely different games within itself, and they interacted with each other. XCOM's kind of the same way. The plot of XCOM nominally is that aliens exist. We see them. They're out there.
They are gray men, and they have UFOs.
And they have started causing trouble on Earth. They start abducting people and mutilating cattle, and then they start attacking people, straight up.
They start just invading Earth flat out. We are going to take over Earth and kill you all, and we're not just gray aliens. We have other things, too.
Well, we don't actually know their motivations, other than that they are attacking Earth for some reason.
Yep.
And attacking Earth means literally coming into a city suddenly and trying to kill everyone there.
In horrible ways.
And harvest their organs. And
ways that get more horrible as the game goes on.
So the governments of the world all try to fight this on. There's actually an extensive backstory to XCOM where the Japanese created this group that tried to fight him and failed, and other people got together. And eventually, the United Nations creates what is effectively NERV from Evangelion. XCOM, the secret organization funded by the world governments that basically exists in these underground bunker bases, much like NERV. And your goal is to identify the threat, defend the Earth from it, and eventually eliminate the threat entirely. You don't know what the threat is. You really have no idea what's going on other than that these alien attacks are occurring. You start with almost nothing. The UN gives you a pile of money. You've got conventional weapons that the Earthlings have. The aliens, meanwhile, have horrible alien technology and plasma rifles and psychic powers.
Yeah, you basically start the game with a few guys that have machine guns, maybe a rocket launcher, a grenade, or a pistol, and like one fighter jet, basically.
Now, the general gist of the game is that you've got to somehow fight off this alien threat, and it costs money to do this. You get money from the UN and all the UN member states. Every year, the UN evaluates your performance and decides whether or not to increase your budget. If you do really poorly, nations might back out of the treaty altogether and stop funding you. Let's say all your bases are around North America. Maybe Russia eventually is sick of this and pulls out and tries to fight the aliens on their own, meaning you lose funding. If you do really horribly, the UN will drop the project altogether and abandon it, in which case you get probably one of the best endings to a video game ever, where the game basically says, yes, over the years, the aliens completely enslave humanity and destroy everything. Good job.
Yes, good job. You're the MVP of the alien team.
So the way the game actually starts in terms of gameplay is you pick a spot on the globe. It can be anywhere on the globe. You've got a 3D globe.
Even in the water?
Well, not in the water. Anywhere in the land.
Antarctica?
Yeah, you can put a base there.
All right.
I have put bases there.
Okay.
And you stick it somewhere. Now, obviously, you probably want to stick it near countries that have more money, so you keep them happy, so they keep giving you more money. But aside from that, you put a base down, and now the game suddenly starts in real time. Time is ticking away in 5-second intervals, 24/7.
Well, can't you change the speed
I'll
of the
get
clock?
to that.
All right.
So you can watch the shadow of the sun and the earth going around, and you just watch the earth in real time. You can spin it around, zoom in, zoom out.
Now remember, even though Rim is saying it's 3D, this is old DOS pixelated graphics doing this. This is not a 3D card with your DirectXs going
Well, no,
on.
it's polygons, but the graphics are actually very good for the time, and they're passable even for modern games.
Yeah, they're good enough to make the game work, but they are not like, don't think incorrectly about them.
Well, they're very good, and I think they're better than almost every open source game out today.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Just because they're really clean. It's like they did the best they could with the technology they had.
Yes. So time progresses in real time constantly. You can alter the rate the time passes, ranging from every interval is 5 seconds to every interval is 24 hours.
That's dangerous.
Yes. Well, the nice thing is, you've got your base, and you're sitting there and you're waiting and whatever. You can click on your base, and there's a billion options. You've got an actual base with a grid. You can build hangars in it, or alien containment things, or armories, or all the stuff you would need to man a base. You got to manage your scientists who are doing research, your engineers who will build stuff for you. You've got to hire troops. Every single person you hire gets a name and individual stats. You have to pay them a salary.
And you equip them with individual weapons. Like, you're like, okay, this guy has a clip of ammo in his right pocket, and he carries a pistol, and there's a rocket launcher in his backpack.
Yes, luckily, a lot of those things are automated. You really don't have to worry about them other than tweaking a few things here and there.
But they're there.
Yes, they're there. The game, basically, you are managing the entire UFO defense. You are the CEO of the secret company that is fighting the aliens. You have to manage the salaries of everyone. You have to manage the politics of when to shoot down aliens where. You have to decide on the science. Every single thing you've got to manage. As a result, there's a fairly fantastic interface where you look at this globe, and you've got your base, and you've got radar installations, whatever. Whenever an alien UFO is picked up, or whenever anything's going on, it'll stop time and pop up a warning saying, hey, UFO designation 001 has been spotted. And depending on what technology you have, maybe you'll learn more about it. And then the game just continues at 5-second intervals. It always drops to 5 seconds whenever there's trouble. And you have to decide how to respond. So you'll have interceptor craft and the Sky Ranger, which is kind of your bus full of troops.
Yep, typically your first response is send out a ship to shoot down the alien UFO. Because if you can do that, you're going to be a lot better off than if you just let it go about its business and it's going to start killing people.
Yes, the UFOs, actually, it's fairly complex. Once you learn to decode the aliens' encryption and read their communication, you start to find out exactly what each of these ships are doing. And it gets really interesting. Like, say you see a terror ship, and you know it's on its way to a city to do some sort of terrorist mission. Or, very interestingly, later in the game, you might start seeing supply ships. And they're big and fat, and they're full of goodies. And say you wonder, why are there supply ships? Where are they going? So then, say you see, hey, these supply ships are always going toward Antarctica. So you fly over to Antarctica with one of your interceptors and tell it to patrol around, and you find an alien fucking base in the middle of the Antarctic.
Oh, shit.
And all sorts of things like that. Or they build alien bases in Russia, and then they infiltrate the Russian government, and then they force the Russian government to pull out of the treaty and stop funding you.
Yep. Now, remember Rim said it was kind of like ActRaiser, where there's two parts, the city building part and then the
well, in this
other
case,
part.
The two parts are one, the the tactical and strategic management of this entire enterprise from the bottom up, from the hiring and firing of individual people working for your program, to the budget, to the technology, to making sure all your equipment is well maintained, well fueled, you have bases with radar coverage everywhere, reacting to multiple UFO threats simultaneously, prioritization, all that fun stuff. That alone would be a fantastic fucking game. I mean, when you send ships out to fight, you don't actually have to sit and fight. There's no sort of, now you pull out the joystick and fight. You're more like the commander. You told the ships to go out. You told them where to go. You watch on your display as they fight the UFOs. You can give them orders like stand down or maintain a safe distance or destroy the UFO at all costs. But otherwise, they act pretty much on their own, and you're the commander. You're not the person doing the dirty work.
Until
the other half of the
land
game.
on the ground.
Well, let's say you shoot down a UFO, which you're going to do at some point, I hope, unless you're really bad at this game. Now, you take all your troops, you equip them with your technology, you equip them with rifles and whatever, you load out your thing, maybe you buy a tank to go with you, and you send your Sky Ranger out, and you land at the UFO site.
Sky Ranger is a ship that's full of soldiers, and it lands on the ground, whereas the Interceptor is a ship that flies around shooting alien ships.
Yeah, now you can get other ships in the game, especially later when you start getting alien technology. See, you don't know what the threat is. That's the best part about this game. You don't know anything. When the first UFO comes up, you know nothing. You have no idea what's going on, so you shoot it down. Then you land, and you don't know what to expect. It now turns into this kind of top-down, isometric kind of view of a gridded battlefield, a three-dimensional battlefield. And you control individual troops in a direct, turn-based, tactical, strategic game.
You control them so micro-y. Like, you say, you duck now, and you turn and face in that direction and look around, and you walk 3 spaces that way, crouch and aim at the door, and if anyone opens that door, you shoot them.
Now, the system is based on time units. So a troop will have, say, 70 time units, and they can use time units to do actions. And say every step you take uses X time units. Drawing a weapon uses X time units, but you can just have weapons drawn. You can set people up ahead of time. Loading and unloading weapons, ducking, standing back up take different amounts of time units. Shooting takes time units. And the thing is, you can use all your time units to move around. And then when you've moved all your units, you end the turn, and then the aliens go. That alone would have been an okay game. But it's semi-real time, even though it's turn-based. So let's say I am walking one of my troops out, and there's an alien who sees where I troop. So I'm walking, and my troop walks into the alien's line of sight. The alien, if he has enough time units, and his reaction speed is high enough compared to that troop, might get to open fire during my turn.
Yeah, the thing is, while you're, normally in a game, with the turn-based grid military combat, if a guy has X movement points, you usually use a lot of those movement points, and you don't care about saving any of them. In this game, if a guy has 10 time units, you're only going to want to use maybe 5. That way, wherever he stops, if an alien jumps out at him, he'll have a chance to shoot at the alien maybe, or run away or something.
It'll take, say, 23 time units to fire a weapon on automatic, fully automatic weapon.
Yep.
So what a lot of strategy involves, like say you've got to go into a building. You'll get all your troops lined up outside in their proper positions, wait around. Then the next round, you'll have like 3 people storm in, duck, and sit there in defensive positions, covering the rest of your troops who storm into the next door and get ready to toss a grenade through.
Yep.
You really have to play it to see the full extent of this. And I can't go into great detail because Scott has to talk about his game, but suffice to say, this style of combat is incredibly fun. It is also incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I basically just die whenever I try it. Even though I understand the general principles and strategies, I just can't seem to do it without just getting killed.
See, I actually have no trouble at all, and I can blow through XCOM even on very difficult settings with relative ease.
Well, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just can't ever kill any aliens, really. Maybe I'll play the first mission, and maybe I'll beat it, but I'll lose some of my guys.
Well, here's the thing. The game is... Well, one, the difficulty scaling of this game is very good. The difficulty options you have when you start a game range in good granularity from trivially easy to absolutely fucking impossible. But even in general, the game itself, even on an average difficulty, in the early game, you don't realize it, but you're going to take 50% casualties, if not more. Your troops are going to get slaughtered. You have no armor. You've got conventional weapons. The aliens have their crazy alien technology. I think, Scott, your problem was that you weren't willing to accept high casualties early in the game.
I think what it was is if I lost stuff, then I would go back to that base, the other part of the game, and I wouldn't have anything, and aliens would come, and I'd be like, oh shit, I have no money, I have nothing, it just all got blown up by aliens.
That's part of the game. The best way to enjoy this game is to not do the save your game every single turn and make sure you always play the game perfectly optimally. It's more fun if, say, one of your missions gets wrecked, and now you've got the 3 surviving troops, one of whom is carrying the 4th surviving troop who is wounded and can't walk anymore. 2 of them are covering your retreat as you desperately try to drag the little bit of alien technology and the 1 alien corpse you recovered back to the Sky Ranger and take off.
I never recovered alien corpses.
Well, the nice thing is the game automates a lot of stuff. Like, if you defeat all the aliens in a crash site, it says, all right, you've completed them all, and it automatically assumes that you take everything from the site.
Yep.
There's a lot more to the game than this. Obviously, I've gone over it in the briefest of detail. But the only other thing I want to talk about, aside from the fact that there's the one game which is awesome, and then the other kind of mini fighting game inside of it that's equally awesome, both of which would be great standalone games in and of themselves, is that there is this UFOpedia, which is a lot like the encyclopedia in Civilization 2.
The Civilopedia?
Yes. The way it works is you don't know anything about the UFO threat. But you have scientists, and you can allocate their time to studying alien resources, or alien corpses, or alien technology, or maybe you capture a live alien, and you try to interrogate him. As you learn about this threat, you start filling out this encyclopedia, and learning about what's going on. And part of the game is that the first time playing through the game is probably the best experience you'll ever get, because you're learning about the game, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, so you can deal with this alien threat. And you'll learn interesting things about the aliens and eventually start to figure out what the actual plot of the game is and start taking action from there. The plot is also incredibly well put together, very solid. The game is just so solid and so tight. And the only problems it has are problems that are just inherent with the fact that this game was made in 1993.
And no one's even tried to make, in recent years, to make this kind of game anymore.
Yes, I won't talk about the sequels because they're terrible. I'm going to review this game more fully someday, maybe when Scott's not around. But suffice to say, XCOM is without question one of my favorite games ever. Definitely top 2.
All right, so in 1990, a game developer known as Toys for Bob made a game called Star Control: Famous Battles of the Urquan Conflict Volume 4. This is Star Control 1.
Nah.
Basically, all Star Control 1 was a game where you controlled in real time, in a 2D top-down view, spaceships, big giant spaceships, even though they weren't so giant on the screen, they really were giant, in outer space, shooting at other spaceships in spaceship melee, even though it's not actual melee because they all have projectile weapons, but it's melee. And the way it works is each ship has a main weapon, which when you fire it reduces your energy meter, but then your energy refills at a rate dependent on which ship you have selected. And you have a crew, and the crew in your ship, when you get hit, that some of them die, and when they all die, your ship explodes. And the other guy has a ship, and you shoot at each other, and you also have a secondary attack, which is different for every ship, that might, do something weird. And eventually the other guy blows up or you blow up, and then if you have a fleet of ships, you pick another ship from your fleet, and you fight again. And there's different ships for all the different races, even though you don't know what the races are. You don't know anything about the Urquan Conflict Volume 4. You don't know why these battles are famous battles of the Urquan Conflict unless you read some text in the instruction manual, which is not really a help. It's just a real-time 2D space combat game that's kind of interesting with lots of different ships that have funny abilities, but there's not much to it. So what happened is people said, hey, what about this Urquan Conflict thing you guys are talking about? And Star Control 1 was popular enough that they were able to make Star Control 2, the Urquan Masters, in 1992. Star Control 2, in a lot of ways, like XCOM, is 2 different games. One game is the game I just described, Star Control 1, even though the combat in Star Control 2 is pretty much the same thing as the combat in Star Control 1. It's better in a lot of ways in that the graphics aren't shit. Because Star Control 1 was like a crap game for old-ass computers like DOS, Amiga, Commodore. I think there was a Genesis version, but it sucked. Star Control 2 was for the DOS and also the 3DO. And it had a lot better graphics, and it was actually playable, and it was way cool. And basically, you had the same combat action of, shooting each other. You could actually choose to just play a combat game like it was Star Control 1. Use the ships from Star Control 2 and just fight each other.
I remember there was a lot of that action at RIT and Colony when people were bored.
Yep. But the combat in Star Control 2 is not as great as, say, the tactical walking around guys in XCOM. It's just there. And the real game is the space adventure. If you've ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or any sort of similar sci-fi stories where there's lots of different alien races that have funny personalities, that's what Star Control 2 is all about. Here's the story of Star Control 2. You are an Earth human scientist of some sort. You were out researching lost ancient space traveling technologies. You come back to Earth only to find that it has been surrounded by a shield and you cannot get to Earth in any way possible. And it's really strange. And this is where the game begins. You are in your precursor battleship. This is a big, giant, awesome spaceship that you just researched and recovered. Imagine, like, if the best fighter jet in the world was actually, like, deep underground and we dug it up and rebuilt it.
Yep, the Romans made it and they buried it and you just found it.
And now you fly it back to Earth and you can't get to Earth and the game begins. You've got this spaceship, you've got a galaxy, and you don't know which stars are which. It's just a galaxy full of stars and you don't know what the hell's going on. You're in your ship has fuel and some other resources. You can spend those resources to do things, like upgrade your ship, outfit it with new weapons, etc., etc. But that's not so important. You've got this ship, you're in space, you came back to Earth after your scientific mission, you can't go to Earth, what the fuck? So you go to the moon, and there's a guy there on the moon. You basically you fly your ship to the moon, and you land there, and you can send this little, every time you go to a planet, you can drop this little guy onto the planet and drive it around the surface of the planet, usually to collect resources, but also to find things. And on this planet, you find a Spathi. A Spathi is one of the alien races that is so humorous in this game that you will lol 10 times.
A Spathi.
Yes.
Spathi.
The Spathi are this really, really funny alien race that has like one big eyeball, and they all have these great personalities and voices, and basically the Spathi are cowards. They run away, and the spaceships that they have these BUTT missiles. The backward utilized tracking torpedo.
Aha.
Yes, you fly the Spathi ship, you fire your secondary weapon, and it goes, and a missile comes out the back of the ship and then homes in on the enemy.
That sounds utterly hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I'm sure.
Trust me.
Okay.
And he tells you this whole story, and you come to realize by traveling around the galaxy and meeting alien races that there are these Urquan guys who have basically gone around to the different races in the galaxy and said, you have two choices. You can either be enslaved by the Urquan, or we will surround your planet with a slave shield.
Surround planet to stay alive.
Yeah. And supposedly the Urquan are doing this to save all the different races of the galaxy from some unknown threat of evil, when really they're just being evil. I'm not going to reveal the whole plot of how you eventually save the galaxy or not, but this game is really awesome because at one hand, you're going around the galaxy, meeting alien races, being diplomatic with them, trying to figure out where to go to get the next thing, to maybe get this one more alien race to join your side or give you some ships to help you fight, or to, fight against the Urquan to free all the other good races in the galaxy. At the same time, you're trying not to die in the horrible loneliness and quietness of space. You're constantly trying to scavenge for resources to keep your ship fueled, or else you can't make it to the next star system. You're constantly trying to, get one more bit of plutonium so you can build another ship so that you can go and destroy those evil aliens over there. You're trying to figure out, where the hell do these aliens live? There's all these stars, and it's completely unmapped galaxy. You're just exploring this big, giant, unknown place, and you'll go to a new star system, and all the planets will just be gas giants with nothing on them. And you go to another star system, and all the planets are gas giants with nothing on them. And the whole atmosphere of the game, it's like comedic and incredibly entertaining different personalities of aliens that when you actually meet them, but also the cold reality of space and the epic plot of a giant war. And when you actually have combat, you whip it out and do it Star Control 1 style.
It seems like both of these games have one thing in common in that while they definitely have some replay value, probably XCOM more than your game.
Yeah, the thing with Star Control 2 is that once you know basically what order to do things in, like, okay, this is how you beat the game. You go to this planet, talk to those people, go to that planet, talk to those people, go collect resources on these planets because you know where the good resources are, build this and this and this, go there. Once you know it and you've memorized it, the whole exploration of space aspect, which is what makes the game so great, is kind of gone because you're not exploring, you already know where everything is. Star Control 2, you really have to go into it cold, not read any facts, not do any tricks, just go into it and pretend that you are this human scientist who came back from a mission, totally found Earth, surrounded by a slave shield, and you have no clue what's going on.
Yep. I mean, while XCOM has a lot more replay value just due to the nature of the game, it still seems like both of these games have a lot to be gained by playing them from a completely ignorant standpoint. Don't go to GameFAQs, don't read anything other than the instruction book, and just play these games like an ignorant person and learn from the game as you go. And I think they're much more rewarding that way.
Absolutely. Another thing, after Star Control 2, which is pretty much the only Star Control worth playing, it's the most popular and the most everything, there was a Star Control 3 developed by a different company, but still published by Accolade. I kind of like Star Control 3 a lot more than most of the Star Control people like it, because it still has sort of that explore the galaxy, talk to alien stuff, and it still has the same combat, only a little upped in the graphics, but it's really not quite the same. Instead of collecting resources, you sort of have these Master of Orion style colony building things. It's not really so great. But Star Control 3, they've also replaced the pixelated animations of the different aliens with actual live puppets of the aliens, which are actually high quality, better than Muppets almost. And they have really good voice acting in Star Control 3 also, so it's worth playing for those two things. But basically, Star Control 4 never came out, and Star Control, all the games became unplayable on modern systems. So the original people who made Star Control 2 and Star Control 1, those Toys for Bob guys, they took the 3DO code, the code for the 3DO version of Star Control 2, they open sourced it under the GPL, and now you can download for free legally a game called simply the Urquan Masters. It is absolutely free. It runs on Windows, Linux, Mac, OS X, and BSD. And that is what you are going to play if you're listening to this podcast.
Yep, and I know a lot of you use Windows, so I'm just going to link to the download for XCOM. You can just play it, because you're not going to find this game for sale anywhere.
Yep, I'll link to the website for Urquan Masters, which you can download 100% legally instead of gray area legally.
Yep. I'm going to find out somewhat shortly whether or not XCOM works in Wine, because I suddenly have this burning desire to play that game again.
And I'm going to apt-get installed UQM to play some Urquan Masters.
God, this might be a problem if we ever keep reviewing old things we like, because it kind of forces us to play those games again as we're reminded about them.
I'm going to put it on my laptop and play it on the train.
The whole time you were talking, I was mostly ignoring you and thinking about all the stuff that made XCOM great and thinking about how much I wanted to get some heavy plasma and some flying armor and just fly around lighting up the goddamn city.
You know what we should do is you should install Urquan Masters and I should get XCOM to work in Wine.
I think I should play through both XCOM and Urquan Masters.
You suck. Yes. Great old PC games you probably never played if you are not super old school.
Yeah, this is definitely where a lot of our complaints about modern PC games come from, where there are good PC games now, but very few games these days live up to the games that I played as a kid, and it shouldn't be that way. Why aren't people making games as good as games back then?
Well, I think it's because the PC has always been a platform where there was a high potential for innovation in game development, because anyone could make a PC game. I mean, look, Star Control is made by Toys for Bob. Who the hell are they? They're just two guys. And in the early days, when it was easy to make PC games and there wasn't a big business around it, people making PC games were all trying cool stuff, like the people who made Hero Quest and the people who made XCOM and all that, all that person made Mule, all that stuff.
I think you meant Quest for Glory.
All right, Quest for Glory.
Right, I was like, Hero Quest. Oh, right, that's the board game.
No, not Hero Quest. Quest for Glory.
Or Police Quest, all that stuff.
All that stuff. You had all these people making really interesting games for the PC because you could make any PC game you wanted, unlike a Nintendo or an Atari game where you couldn't make any game you wanted. And then eventually the PC games just started to fall into these genres, like Warcraft 1 was crazy. It was like, holy crap, an RTS. It's insane. And then, holy crap, Wolfenstein, an FPS. That's insane. And then a few genres eventually stuck out from the rest and carried on. And all the other really interesting, unique PC games were like one hits. Like, yep, there's Star Control 2. No one could ever make a game like that again.
Yeah, or even some genres that used to exist don't exist anymore. Where are my free space flight sims?
I know, tell me about it. There was TIE Fighter and Wing Commander.
X-Wing Alliance.
Yep, and there was Free Space. I think Free Space 2 was the last free space fly-around shooting game.
At least the last good one, partly because there's no more joysticks.
I don't know. It's sort of
the
like...
joystick I bought in 1994 was superior to any joystick I've seen in a Best Buy since.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a catch-22 where there are no joysticks because there are no flight sims that require joysticks, but at the same time, there are no flight sims because there are no joysticks.
Yeah, if anyone sees a Flight Stick Pro from back in the day, let me know, because I got one, but I finally broke it.
I was actually always a fan of the separate throttle and joystick combos, but there was only one good one of those ever, and the modern version of it sucks because it's all flimsy.
God, not only did I convince my dad to shell out $70 for a Flight Stick Pro, but I then opened it up and modded it with much thicker springs.
It's very important to have a joystick that is difficult to move around.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.